It's the most wonderful day of the year. December 15th, the day that I let myself wear this fun hat. I'm filming this segment in October. And take a look, even the animals are celebrating with me. Oh, and what's this? A December 15th present from GD? Funny, I don't think I know a GD. Well, that's my girlfriend's initials. Kind of. Hey, game dog. The video game dog that lives in my house with me that tells me what games I have to play. Established in episode 105, the ARMS first impression. Remember that one? What are you doing here? Yeah, I know that you told me that I had to play Paper Mario Sticker Star at the end of episode 105, the ARMS episode. Remember that one? But I've been very busy. What do you mean I've been stalling? In this video, I'm gonna go absolutely nuts about a cheap plastic microphone. One of the reasons why I wanted to make this video was to have an excuse to visit Tony Town. The other reason I'm making this video is to stall. Okay, I'll admit I've been stalling, but please, I'll play Paper Mario Sticker Star, just don't hurt me! So, Paper Mario Sticker Star, the game I've most consistently not wanted to play since 2012. I'm not gonna get into too much backstory on this one. If you're a Paper Mario fan, you probably know the ins and outs of this series more than Nintendo does at this point, but here's the very basics. Starting in the year 2000, Y2K didn't kill us all unfortunately, so Nintendo was able to release Paper Mario 64, which was originally planned to be a sequel to Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars for the Super NES, but despite that original plan failing to pan out, what we got instead was nothing less than a great game and a great introduction to a new series. Flash forward to 2004, when kids around the globe weren't busy falling in love with the smash hit Shark Tale, they were playing Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door on their Nintendo GameCubes. Incredible game with a few glaring flaws, mainly in terms of graphics and tedious backtracking, but still considered to be the peak of the series to this day that managed to improve on what the previous game did in pretty much every way. Boom! 2007, the American housing crisis was starting to bubble, but that's nothing to worry about because we were finally blessed with Super Paper Mario. This one was pretty divisive when it released, due to it being less of a traditional RPG like the previous games, and more of a side-scrolling platformer with RPG elements. But as time has gone on, it's developed quite the devoted fanbase, largely thanks to its stellar story. I haven't played this one yet, but it's proof that the Paper Mario series could experiment with new ideas and even entirely new genres, while still maintaining its core identity and its connection with the fans. 5 years later, on November 11, 2012, Nintendo and Intelligent Systems released Paper Mario Sticker Star for the Nintendo 3DS. Before launch, it kind of looked like the game was going for a back-to-basics approach, almost like it was an intentional effort to move away from the out-of-the-box weirdness of Super Paper Mario's world and design. Look at these sterile, safe choices. Bowser's the main antagonist, the environments are recognizably Mushroom Kingdom-y again, and at one point it even appeared that rotating partners would be returning in a form similar to the first two games. Honestly, on the surface, these changes didn't sound bad. I mean, it's not up for debate how damn weird Super was, so I can understand Nintendo wanting to reel the franchise in a little bit, and it's not like Paper Mario 64 didn't have its more basic elements as well, proving that a simple Mario vs. Bowser story in a traditional Mario-esque world could work well if done right. But we all know what happened next. What happened next was Sticker Star, and well, here we go, I guess. I guess I'm finally gonna play Sticker Star, huh? No, let's keep stalling a little bit longer. Let's take a look at this box. Hey, no better way to stall than to stare at a game's box, right? I actually don't mind this box art. I like how Mario looks kind of textured and the bright aesthetic is appealing, but it's nothing special either. It gets the job done just fine enough, but it definitely isn't as memorable as the artwork that the first two games got. But let's flip it around and look at the back. Stick the world together. When an astronomical event rains stickers across the land, Mario embarks on an epic flat-out adventure. Stick it to him. Every sticker you find is a new attack. Scour the land to find new stickers. Get unstuck. Use stickers to uncover secrets. Apply stickers everywhere. Solve sticky situations. Are you sensing a f***ing theme about this game? Okay, before we finally start playing the game, I am contractually obligated to spend 7 minutes thanking the sponsor of today's video, Audible. Yes, that'll do. Audible is the, Hello? Oh, hey, Game Dog. What? What do you mean Audible isn't a sponsor of this video? What do you mean I'm just stalling because I don't want to play Paper Mario? Lousy spam calls. As I play Sticker Star, I'm gonna be asking myself one key question. Is it possible to enjoy Sticker Star? Look, I realize that sounds a bit silly. After all, enjoyment is completely subjective. Somebody out there probably enjoys chowing down on bars of soap, but that doesn't really mean much to me personally. But while even the worst games tend to have their niche fan bases, shout out to the Rugrats Royal Ransom community, Sticker Star has spent the last 8 years of its life being mercilessly bullied at every possible turn by just about everybody. If people treated an actual 8-year-old like that, they'd surely be in prison, but this game is so universally known to suck complete ass that nobody really minds. If you asked 500 people if this game sucks, you'd almost certainly get less than 10 no's, and I'd argue that that's about as objective as this sort of thing gets. Nonetheless, I'm gonna do my absolute best to put my biases aside and enjoy this game for what it is. It doesn't need to be TTYD2, it doesn't need to be a strict RPG, it doesn't need to be unique or interesting or quirky or even technically good, but again, I will try my best to see if I can enjoy this experience for what it is. And I guess we will finally find out what this game is, because I have run out of ways to stall, so we're hopping in. This title screen isn't too bad. It's a cute little Mario walking around looking at stuff. It's not much and I could live with or without it, but hey, it's better than the title screen of ARMS, and that game's a lukewarm sack of mediocrity. Start the game up and we get hit with this cutscene setting up the game's story in quotation marks, and okay, the cutscene on its own is completely fine, but while I did my best to go into this game as blind as possible, I read somewhere that apparently Bowser doesn't say a single word in this game. You know, Bowser, probably the most consistently funny and likable character in the previous Paper Mario games, they silenced Bowser? Like I said earlier, I do truly believe that a Mario vs. Bowser story could work in this series. But for that to work, Bowser would have to be, you know, at least a little bit interesting to justify the simplicity of it. Here, no, we don't have time for any of that. Just throw an evil crown on him. That's character motivation enough. Do you see how shiny this evil crown is? But anyway, the game's story basically boils down to this. There's a sticker festival going on for some godforsaken reason, I guess because a sticker comet is passing by. Alright, whatever. Bowser is possessed by an evil force while trying to mess things up. Go stop him. This isn't a story, it's a second grader's book report on the new Super Mario Bros. Series. It is kind of funny how anticlimactically the scene ends though. Gotta be honest, nothing is more enjoyable to me than watching Mario lose. Next we have to save Kirsty, this game's one and only partner character. Please give me Goombella back. I do not like Kirsty whatsoever. She's as useless as a floating crown sticker would be in real life. Right off the bat, she's rude to us for something we didn't even do. Lady, what the hell? I just saved you from being stuck to a sandwich board for the rest of your life. Nice. If you press the L button, she chimes in with tips and tricks throughout the game, which I actually did use a few times, but every time I did that, I remembered that she was my only companion again, and Jesus Christ, I just want Goombella back. If we're gonna be stuck with only one partner character, please let it be Goombella. And that's just about all of the story and exposition stuff, believe it or not. From here, we just need to round up all of these toads in order to be able to head off. This little town, Decalburg, get it? Because decal stickers? Later functions as the game's central hub, but in the beginning this area serves as a tutorial to familiarize us with the controls and the concept of searching for stickers everywhere, which is fine, I get it, but here's what I'd like to call one major minor nitpick. So in order to progress out of here, we have to find every single toad in this area. Each time we save one, they run to the left side of town and are added to a big pile of saved toads. But the game doesn't bother to tell us how many toads need to be saved, and after I finally found the last one, I ended up wandering around for like 5 more minutes because I didn't realize that I even found them all. This is just the first time where I really felt like the game was just completely wasting my time. Like, how hard would it have been to make the last toad's dialogue be something like, "Wow, thanks for finding us, way to go!" Instead, I felt like a big stupid idiot searching behind these buildings for the 3rd time because the game didn't feel like telling me that I'd already completed the objective. But whatever, the good news is that we can finally head out of here and down to the world map. That's right, a Paper Mario game with a goddamn world map. I'll get to my feelings on that later. But first we have to deal with a quick Goomba ambush. This of course is here to teach us the game's battle system, and this is where I can finally complain about this stupid battle system for several minutes. Okay, so we all know why battling in this game is absolutely pointless. The weapons are disposable and only last a single use each, and the only reward for battling is either more weapons or more coins. Coins which can be used in the game's shop to buy more weapons, which you then use in more battles, making the whole thing a completely unnecessary cycle. Thankfully, we can be total chads and just run away from the battles, which works about 80% of the time and doesn't punish us in any way. And let me tell you, we are definitely going to be running away from 80% of these battles. However, a few battles are mandatory, so let's go over the basics here. So we have these stickers, each with their own properties and attack damage and all of that. By default, we can choose one sticker per attack that usually only targets a single enemy. We then perform an action command like in the first 2 games in order to execute the attack. That part's alright, I always enjoy executing the action command, so I'm glad they're still here. Once our attack is over, we lose the sticker, the enemy attacks us, we try and usually fail at blocking, and repeat. Later in the game, we pressure Mario to succumb to his crippling gambling problem by gaining access to this battle spinner. So basically, the spinner is random, but we can pay more money to slow it down and make it easier, and if we match 3 slots, we get a bonus item and 3 attacks instead of 1. If we match only 2 slots, we get 2 attacks, but no bonus. This addition is so goddamn superfluous, but it is required to defeat certain enemies, such as this fight with a giant Buzzy Beetle. That's about it, and... how in the absolute hell did they think that any of this was fun in any way? These sticker battles were such an integral part of the game's design that according to developers, they even got rid of the partner characters specifically because they interfere too much with the new system. They nixed one of the best features of the first games for this? I'm gonna be honest, these battles from a gameplay perspective aren't bad. They function and they're easy enough to understand, but they're just so slow. So mind-numbingly tedious. Every attack takes so much longer than it needs to. The fact that by default, we can only attack once per round is so bizarre to me, and it almost leads me to believe that this section wasn't even fully play-tested. I refuse to believe that anybody could battle these enemies and have fun for more than 20 seconds. Tops. The game is also strangely inconsistent with battling. Half the time I walk right in front of an overworld enemy and it's like they don't even see me. It feels incredibly random when an enemy decides to initiate a fight. But despite all of that, thanks to the fact that we can just run away from most of these battles, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? But isn't that kind of an issue? Isn't the fact that I'm incentivized to run away from battles in a game where battling is such a core gameplay mechanic kind of a major flaw? How can a game introduce a system like this that can pretty much always be ignored without consequence and consider the system to be a success? The fact that I have to straight up avoid a core element of the game in order to better enjoy the experience, to me, already makes this an irredeemable failure. But as I mentioned earlier, even if the game is objectively not good, and even if the game features this strange and frustrating mechanic, I'm still gonna do my absolute best to enjoy it for what it is. And I will be honest, running away from the battles did provide me with a very, very small level of enjoyment. It was a little satisfying to outrun enemies and successfully flee battles, so believe it or not, I found something I like about this game, and for that, I will give this battle system 2 ant points. Speaking of elements of this game that I enjoyed, this feels like a good opportunity to talk about the game's visuals and music. The visuals are pretty good for a 3DS game, and there are even a couple of moments that look straight up nice in my opinion. I like this moment before the first world's boss where bombs are flying all over the place. I enjoy how when some enemies are taking damage they crash into the screen for a second. It all looks pretty alright, especially given the hardware. The art design on the other hand, oh god no, it's bland as all hell, and the fact that each world repeats the same aesthetic over and over again makes every area feel extremely monotonous, but again, credit where credit is due. On the surface, the game is pretty. The characters look fine too, like this is definitely Paper Mario, alright. The music on the other hand is just very, very good. It's not the best the series has ever seen, some of it is pretty meh, but these are good tracks overall. I'm very fond of the battle theme in particular. It's upbeat and pleasant while maintaining that traditional Mario flair. The presentation of this game is just like the game's box art actually. It's serviceable and has elements that I quite like, but it's still the low point of the series for sure. But all of that out of the way, let's head to this game's world map. World map? World map? That's right folks, this game has worlds, like the 2D Mario platformers of old, each world being split up into numbered levels. I am not a fan of this change in any way, shape, or form. I understand that the previous games, the Thousand Year Door especially, had some issues with backtracking, so maybe that's what inspired them to make this decision. I can also see the benefit that a world map would have to make this more of a pick up and play experience given the fact that it's a handheld game and all, but this just makes the whole thing feel so much more disconnected and less immersive for me. The problem is that, as I mentioned earlier, each world becomes so monotonous by the time you reach the end because there's not a lot that distinguishes the levels and even the worlds from one another. This is the same problem that the new Super Mario Bros. Games encounter, but with those, it's not as big of a deal in my opinion, because in those games you generally blaze through each level in less than a couple of minutes, so even if a world's theme might begin to feel a bit samey by the end, they never overstay their welcome long enough for it to become an issue. But Sticker Star isn't a platformer that you can just speed through. It's an adventure RPG where you're expected to look around and explore, so the same approach doesn't work here. Some of these levels last like 20 minutes if you don't know what you're doing, and there are just so many of them. I thought I could maybe hop between worlds to break up the monotony, but unfortunately the game kind of tricks you into thinking that it's more open than it really is. When we first boot up the world map, we're gridded to 4 possible directions to move in, which led me to believe that this game would have a non-linear structure. That would have been nice, but the problem is that there are these frequent moments where you need thing items from one specific area in order to progress to a different one, and the game does not make it remotely clear where these items are. Case in point, In order to access World 2, we need to find 6 specific stickers, including a poison mushroom. I do not recall finding a single poison mushroom during my normal playthrough of the first world, meaning that as far as I know, the only way to get a poison mushroom and advance to World 2 is to play through level 1-3, find the secret exit to level 1-5, which I found out of pure luck. We have to fall into this waterfall that I completely overlooked during my first time here. Then we have to walk through this excruciatingly boring area full of spinies that we have to try and fail to outrun, hit this tree, watch this cutscene that's like 30 seconds long. I'd play out the full thing, but I'm not a sociopath. Save this toad, all to open up a new shop that sells poison mushrooms, and then finally reach the end of the level. This section, by the way, is pretty much Sticker Star's gameplay in a nutshell, but we'll get to that soon enough. Point is, although it looks like the map allows us to make our own choices, we are limited by being forced to find all of the stupid thing items that the game scatters around in certain areas, which locks our progression and turns the entire game into a linear slog, just as I had feared. If these worlds were more distinct than just grass, desert, forest, etc., this would be more forgivable. I can understand the first world being grassy to establish this as a more back-to-basics Paper Mario game, fair enough, but these areas are just so boring, so generic, and so cliche Mario that I honestly dreaded spending time in any of them. Which brings us to gameplay. I'm about to say something a little bit controversial, and if you want to burn me alive for this, I completely understand, but here I go. I think that the level design of the Thousand Year Door on the surface can be really quite bad. TTYD is a masterpiece of a game, but the moment-to-moment gameplay, for me personally, is not one of the reasons why that is. Every world at TTYD feels structurally the same, with the exception of World 3, which is essentially a series of overworld battles with a mystery narrative tying it all together. I'm definitely not doing TTYD justice by oversimplifying it like this, but each area of that game is essentially just a hallway with enemies and some very light puzzle solving, usually forcing you to utilize your partners and surroundings in creative ways. But the game's story, humor, and engaging battle mechanics keep pulling you forward, and it's very easy to overlook some pacing problems when the overall package is so damn good. Sticker Star, and I can't believe I'm saying this honestly, but Sticker Star on the surface plays as if it is the Thousand Year Door 2. Which actually makes sense because, as is well known by now, the game was originally planned to be more in line with the first two games, until Miyamoto came in and said that it played too much like the GameCube one, leading to the team at Intelligent Systems trying to come up with new ideas in response. I'm not blaming Miyamoto specifically for this game, by the way. It's well established by now that that's not the full story, and it's also known that he doesn't really have much influence over the series anymore. If you want to know more about that, check out an Arlo video on the subject, but point is, we know for sure that this game was originally going to be very different. As I mentioned earlier, partner characters were even supposed to return until they were all sacrificed for the sticker battle mechanic, but I think it's clear that remnants of that original game, which would have played more like a TTYD 2, do exist in this game's structures. These levels are usually just hallways. The enemies sometimes try to rush you to initiate battles and you can strike them first in order to get an extra hit. The gameplay is often stopped by these in-engine cutscenes designed to keep pushing you forward. All of these elements feel like the skeleton of the first two games in a lot of ways. But see, that's the problem. This game often plays like a skeleton of two great games, but with a lousy battle system and no engaging story to keep me invested. So much of this game boils down to pressing right on the control stick and holding a button to pull stickers off of walls. Literally, that's what I was doing for like 60% of the time. The few puzzles I encountered were bafflingly easy to figure out, and let me make this clear. I suck at puzzles. I mean, I've established many times before that I suck at most games, but especially figuring out puzzles. The only somewhat interesting gameplay mechanic I encountered was Kirsty's Paper Eyes ability. See, throughout the game, there will be these segments where items are missing or misplaced or whatever, and we can essentially freeze time in order to play God and fix the situation. Almost every solution to these puzzles is a painfully obvious one. An item, for example a bridge, is missing, we find the bridge, we paperize in order to replace the bridge, boom, mission accomplished. But there were a couple of idle moments where I appreciated figuring out the solutions to these problems. For example, on the way to the World 1 boss fight, there are these fans that blow us away if we try to get past them. At first I figured that there was an alternate path that we needed to take in order to proceed, but I was wrong, so I just thought to myself, F it, what if we place some stickers on these fans to stop the flow of air? And sure enough, that solution worked, and I honestly did think it was pretty clever. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there are these moments where we have to use our thing items in order to progress, such as placing a fan on a pedestal in order to blow a windmill that's blocking a door we need to access. This required no brain activity on my end whatsoever, but at the same time, if we hadn't found the fan and then turned it into a sticker in Decalburg before getting here, we might not have ever realized that we needed this specific item in order to get past this area. Therefore, puzzles like this somehow manage to be both stupidly easy and narrowly specific, and for that reason, there's no satisfaction satisfaction in solving them whatsoever. Another example of this is that later in World 3, we encountered this set of bowling pins with another stand next to it, telling us that somewhere in this game there was a bowling ball thing item that we hadn't passed by yet and missed. This honestly irritated me so much that I had to take a break from the game and think about what I'm doing with my life, but point is, the gameplay of Sticker Star is so simple, so joyless, and so devoid of anything interesting, especially when including the atrociously pointless battle system, that I can't personally call it even mildly fun. And that leads me to my next point. In the beginning of this video, I said that my main goal would be seeing if this game can be enjoyable, regardless of what it is and isn't. However, I now have one smaller objective as well, in the form of a question. How long does somebody have to do something before forming an opinion on it? If a TV show has 32 seasons, how many episodes do I have to watch in order to decide that The Simpsons started getting much worse during season 8? I mean, that I don't enjoy that show personally. How far do I have to get into a 3-hour-long superhero movie before realizing that I just do not care about what's going on in it? And for the case of a video game with a length of 21 to 25 hours according to HowLongToBeat.com, how much do I need to play before being allowed to decide that I just don't like it? How much of a lousy experience do I have to force myself through before deciding that it's an experience that I'd simply rather not have? Because I'm just gonna say it right now, I gave up on Paper Mario Sticker Star 4 hours into my playthrough, and I don't feel bad about it whatsoever. Let me quickly run through my experience with Sticker Star. I started off by wasting my time looking for toads that I had already found because the game didn't tell me that I found them all. I got to the world map and played through most of World 1 with the exception of World 1-5, which I didn't immediately realize existed. The entire thing was a slog and I found no joy in any moment other than when I managed to successfully outrun or flee an overworld battle. I beat the boss of the area, this King Goomba fella, by wasting all of my valuable thing item stickers. Kirsty let me know that there was an easier solution to this battle that required a specific thing item I hadn't found. I told her to go f*** herself. I then went to World 2. As I mentioned earlier, I did not yet have a poison mushroom that I needed in order to get through this door. I spent like half an hour running through some of World 1 again trying to find one that I missed. I even tried to see if I could win one with the Battle Gambler. I failed, I gave up and moved on to World 3. I actually got through some of World 3, and I didn't mind this area as much simply because the levels felt a bit shorter and more streamlined, minus this one Lost Wood segment that I totally just guessed the solution to on my third attempt. That felt pretty stupid, but whatever. I then had to find this Wiggler's body pieces that Kamek stole from him in a pretty funny scene. Look at this. This is alright. I beat 3-4, but without Wiggler's body piece from the level, so I tried to find it. I gave up after it ran away from me and it disappeared. I then discovered those bowling pins I mentioned earlier, screamed into my pillow, exited the level, and took a break. I then decided to check out Surf Shine Harbor, which I assume leads to World 4, but I was told that I need a specific thing item in order to progress that I knew I didn't have yet, so I gave up on that, ended up finding World 1-5 out of pure luck while looking for poison mushrooms again. I played through this absolute slog of a level that I truly despise, but at least I was able to buy the poison mushroom. I ran back to 2-1 with the stickers I needed in order to enter the generic and anticlimactic desert level, and I f***ing died in a battle 10 minutes into the level. I swear to God, dying in this battle made me so angry because I was trying so hard to run away, but these lousy dipshits froze me and killed me so quickly. I just couldn't do it. I'm sorry, I played for 4 hours, collected so many stickers, ran away from so many battles, progressed through so many boring linear levels that all shared the same boring, forgettable aesthetics with the same boring and mindless gameplay, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I took the game cartridge out of my 3DS, and if there is a merciful God out there, I will never have to touch it again. Look, I recognize that it's somewhat unfair to criticize a game that I haven't even fully finished. For all I know, World 2-2 or 3-5 or whatever is when the game really starts kicking off and it introduces a million new mechanics and it becomes the best entry in the series, and it gives me back the $10 that I spent for this game on Craigslist. For all I know, I'm unfairly judging the best Paper Mario game ever made, and all I have to do to get to the good stuff is play through another 10 hours of boring, meandering areas that are devoid of any life or surprise or good dialogue or fun. But this is when I'm finally going to circle back to this video's main question. Is it possible to enjoy Sticker Star? And after getting through what I believe to be enough content to justify my answer, I can confidently state that no, it is not, unless you are absolutely playing the game wrong in every single way. It is possible to enjoy Sticker Star if you manage to skip every last battle that you can. I assume it's possible to enjoy Sticker Star if you play with a YouTube walkthrough in the background telling you where all the stupid thing items are, which I did not allow myself to do for this video. I assume it's maybe even possible to enjoy Sticker Star if you have never played a Paper Mario game, or a Mario game in general, or you have no frame of reference of video games whatsoever and watching footage of Superman 64 is exciting to you because you've never seen anything like it before. But I cannot enjoy Paper Mario Sticker Star, and trying to do so for any longer will honestly give me an aneurysm. I really tried to look at this game without bias, but the problem isn't that the game is an unplayable nightmare with game-breaking bugs and impossible sections. The problem is that it's one of the most boring games I've ever played through, and one that I played with a legitimate frown on my face during some moments. I did not imagine that the game was this dull, this devoid of even a touch of that so-called Nintendo charm, but besides the music and some of the visuals being impressive for the hardware, I can't find anything else nice to say here. Paper Mario Sticker Star isn't the worst game ever made, or a dumpster fire or anything like that. It's just so bland. And that, to me, is an even bigger offense. At least it's kind of interesting to watch a dumpster fire, which is honestly more than I can say about this game. Well, there's only one more thing to do before wrapping this video up, and that's seeing how this game concludes. Oh, spoiler alert for Paper Mario Sticker Star in 3, 2. Mario wins. 1 amp point out of 5. I would have given the game 2 if Kirsty died at the end. Well, those were my thoughts on Paper Mario Sticker Star, and I recognize since I didn't play the full thing, Game Dog is gonna beat me. Well, do your work! He's gone! He must agree that 4 hours is long enough to decide whether or not you enjoy something. It's a December 15th miracle!